I'm Pat Valley, and welcome to the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories and side gigs of the research and insights pros that you trust. Super excited today to welcome Chris Connolly to the program. Now, Chris is based in Denver, Colorado, and is vice president at the Logit Group, where he's been since 2018. If you know that company, then you know that they are excellent at providing data collection, technology, and services for their clients and customers, operational services for their clients and customers in the research space. So, super cool company. Now, Chris is also active in the Insights Association Southwest chapter, I believe, on the board of directors, if I'm not mistaken.
South Central, South Central.
South Central, South Central. Yes.
They
Hey,
changed the name about a year and a half ago.
that's right. Okay, cool, cool. Me too. Then it's kind of like emerging, right? So
Yeah.
I I am a fan. I'm a fan of the Insights Association. I am a member. So good on you for that. And lastly, if you live in Denver or live in Boulder, in or around those areas, or have in the last, I don't know, like 30 years or so, it's almost certain that at some point you've seen Chris on stage, either at a bar or a festival or a coffee shop, performing songs and all that good stuff. He's been doing it for a long time around that area. So we're going to talk about all that and more on today's podcast. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Excited to do the show. You've got a great back catalog of stuff. So anybody who's watching this, go back and watch the other ones too. There's some really fantastic folks who are involved in the podcast and a good history there.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate the plug. I have to agree with you. I think they've had lots of really cool guests. So I do hope people explore the back catalog. I do want to say also that I have Becky Schultz from Market Vision to thank for putting us in touch. She has done that on a number of occasions for me. So thank you, Becky.
Thanks,
Um,
Becky.
yeah, yeah. Thanks so much, Becky. I appreciate that. So you know how this goes, Chris. Let's talk research first. So it's always interesting to hear the origin story. So how'd you get into research?
Okay, so I guess I'm here because I'm a researcher, but I rock and roll too. So we'll
There
start
you
off
go.
with the bread and potatoes.
You're in the right place.
Yeah, 25 years ago, really kind of by chance, actually, I started off as a phone interviewer, believe it or not. So I worked at a company, Aspen Information. At that point in time, I believe it was quantum research, and we were doing a lot of media audit research as phone interviews in markets across the country. Worked on the phones there through the summer, and actually an opportunity came up to work within the data processing and programming departments.
Mhm.
So hopped on there, interviewed well, and got the job. They gave me training on how to really come up to speed with tech. Really, at that point in time, I didn't have much of a tech background aside from programming classes in high school and college.
Yeah.
Um, and I worked for those departments kind of as as a foot soldier for a few years, and then started moving into management. So I managed data processing, then moved on to managing programming. Then I hopped the fence and I moved into client services and actually ran the programming and client services department simultaneously for a while.
Cool.
And with that experience built into internal sales, working on contracts and bids for existing clients. Really had a lot of background with operations and people management,
Right.
which I think really, for my part, I really appreciate that because it really helps me understand the human aspect of what it takes to get work done, and that really comes to what it takes to get work done on our side of the equation, and also on the client side of the equation. So when it comes to dealing with difficult situations, really understanding that everybody comes to the table with their background of challenges that they're dealing with, and being able
Yeah.
to assimilate that into your process and into your solution really helps to be able to bring things to a conclusion that's successful. And then let's see, Aspen actually over time, Aspen was bought out by a group that was really more focused on BPO work, so really more appointment setting and things having to do with phone contact. So
Sure.
that's when I joined Logit Group, And Logit Group, I kind of changed my focus from operations to more of a business development and solutions
Sure.
orientation. One thing that was really great about joining Logit is Logit's really got a diverse set of different services. So I was really able to jump in with a supportive group of mentors who are able to teach me about all the different methodologies I was kind of missing out on over time, being really in that caddy world for such a long time. So
Right.
it's been great. And it's also, it takes me back. I went to high school in Canada. Working with folks who are based out of Toronto,
Oh, that's
kind
cool.
of brought me back to that. Although, as I mentioned, Logit's, even though we're based out of the Toronto area, global company, so it's really been great to have the opportunity to work across different methodologies and then actually branch out into doing a lot of work globally and working with global resources. Keeps me up late at night, but I'm used to that because rock and roll.
That's right. That's right. Now, one thing you mentioned, sort of having that caddy background. I
Yep,
found that people that sort of come from that world really have a good, strong foundation when it comes to data quality practices, as it
yep,
applies to the online world, because that's when you really had, every project really had a whole lot of sort of checks and controls and it, interventions and tweaks and that sort of thing, because you're dealing with surveys that either work or they don't for the respondent. So
right.
so it's a good background to have. Would you agree?
I would agree. And the thing is with Caddy, you know right away what's happening with your respondents, seeing as you're on with them live. We talk a lot about respondent experience when it comes to online interviewing.
Right.
And unless yeah, unless you're really diving in yourself and taking a look to make sure that the interface is working,
Yeah.
how are you going to know? I mean, there's times you'll have drops and whatnot, but nobody's sending you an email saying, "Hey, my experience has been terrible. What's happening is you're just getting bad data."
Yeah.
I'd also say on the caddy side, a lot of that work was very methodology driven too. So a lot of things having to do with response rate or having to do with very paced, even filling of quotas across different quota dimensions and whatnot. I did a lot of work in political polling, which was very fast paced but very demanding as far as methodology is concerned.
Right.
And something that's kind of unique about that is you kind of get scored. After the election happens, you know whether or not your projections were close or not.
Yeah.
So all those different things really kind of set the table for me to be able to grow into the other methodologies and carry through those same lessons into these different contexts. It's all the same thing, though. It's all about basically providing quality insights and quality data so that the story that you're telling at the boardroom table actually has bearing in reality, right?
Yep. 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 Exactly. So let's talk rock and roll, man. So you've
Right
you've
on.
been at it for a long time. So tell us about how you got started and a bit about your journey.
Sure. It's been a long journey, that's for sure. I started playing guitar in high school. It's kind of funny. I've got a somewhat of an embarrassing story, but back in the '80s, back when people used to lip sync, I was in middle school and I did a talent show where we did lip syncing, and unfortunately, you're not in control of your own music. It's what gets
Yeah.
played that drives what you're doing. And this was back in the day of cassette tapes. So the person who was running the AV, the unfortunate eighth grader who was back there in control of the show, put our song on the wrong side. So the tape was put on the wrong side.
Oh
We started the
no.
song, we had the choreography and everything all figured out what we were going to do down to a T. Song starts off, it's the wrong song. It's in the middle of some random song on the other side of this tape, and I'm left explaining with no microphone too, just kind of hollering up to this guy at the back of the auditorium, "Hey, it's the wrong side of the tape. Could you flip it over? Could we start over?" It was really embarrassing, and I told myself, "I'm never gonna step on stage ever again unless I'm playing my own dang music." And then there was actually a band that played later, a real band that played, and I was really jealous. I thought, "Those guys look really cool, and I feel really not cool after that experience." So, yeah, taking destiny into my own hands, decided it's time to figure it out for myself. My family's musical, so there was a guitar that was in the house. My dad used to play, acoustic kind of folk type music and whatnot. So he quit, but there was still instruments around the house. So I was able to grab
Sure.
something, grab a book. Actually, I took lessons briefly in classical, but most of what I've learned on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool. And so, how long was it before you were playing in bands and doing all that sort of thing?
Playing in bands pretty quickly. So, got my chords down. Moved, as I mentioned, I lived in Canada for a while. So I started playing. I was in Washington State, and then I moved to Ottawa, Canada. I was in kind of a podunk little town when I lived in Washington State, a little fishing town called Gig Harbor, which is now grown up and is really kind of a bedroom community for the Seattle Tacoma area.
Right.
But moving to Ottawa gave me a lot of different. There were a lot of people to play music with. There was a lot that was going on. There was a big punk rock scene. So,
Yeah.
knowing your background, that's when I was into thrash and whatnot. And that's kind of what I started off playing. Got my first electric guitar. Taught myself, the entire Ramones album, entire Clash albums in an afternoon. That's when I realized this stuff isn't that hard
Yes.
to do, but it's hard to have the right attitude. And then, yeah, my first band, I was actually within 4 months of moving to Ottawa. I had my first band, and then we were doing what they called coffee houses, which was not an actual coffee house. It was actually the drama department would have these little performances, like small talent shows.
Okay.
So we show up to do those, and we were a pretty extravagant little setup, a little trio, but we always like to put on different shows. We dress up in costumes and do these pretty involved different kind of skits and plays with our music. We did a mix of covers and original music. Lived there for a few years, then moved to California, and continued to teach myself. California, I lived in a town that wasn't that big, Ventura, so there wasn't really a lot that was going on. It wasn't until I graduated high school and then got out, got to Colorado. In Colorado, actually, there's a really vibrant music scene here.
Yeah.
So I was able to land in a place that had a lot of roots, a lot of bluegrass roots, actually. So I was able to be exposed to different types of music and just have a lot of different opportunities to play out.
Yeah. Have you ever? I have to ask because I'm going to Red Rocks for the first time. I think next month.
Oh,
Have
really?
you, yeah. Have you ever had a chance to play there?
Yeah, actually, I've not
Dude.
had the opportunity to play there specifically. I did do a wedding there, so
Oh, cool.
um, yeah, so that was fun. We actually just me and a buddy were playing acoustic guitar back behind. It was a small wedding, so we were just playing a couple of little songs, but that was fun. I haven't played Red Rock specifically, but it's on the list. So perhaps this coming summer we'll see. I don't have anything that's lined up, but if anybody knows, give me a call. We're happy to open for whoever.
Cool. Cool. Awesome. All right, so you've been doing both of these things for so long, right?
Mhm.
Research and music. It's both regular parts of your life. Is there anything that you've learned from one that you've applied to the other, or are they like totally separate spheres for you?
No, not separate spheres. There's, I think a lot of it's on the ground level. Approach is something that really translates from professional life to musical life, and vice versa. I mean, being self-taught on guitar really gave me a lot of tools to be able to be ready to seek out answers in places where they're not evident. So I didn't have guitar teachers who were showing me. Everything was really, how am I going to figure this out? What tools did I have? And what am I going to do to make this work? Where can I go to actually find the tools to make this song work out, or to make what I'm trying to figure out musically work? So that was one aspect of things. Obviously, working in bands, that's essentially like working in a small team. So everybody has their place that they play within the structure of a song, and being able to uh, work with others in a way where you complement their strengths and not step on their toes is something that has really been useful professionally. And I think another thing is when I think about it, it's kind of like looking at unstructured data, right? I mean, essentially, music is technically, it's very technical as far as an art is concerned. So when you're learning how to do it, it's all about these different systems, shapes, forms, timings, and whatnot. But what it really comes down to when it comes to having art in your music is essentially being able to take those systems and recognize patterns and then turn those patterns into a compelling story. We talk
Yeah.
about
Yep.
storytelling in research all the time. And really there's such a such a similarity between the two different practices where you're taking essentially a lot of statistics and research and turning it into something that's a compelling story that basically markets what you're looking to market or gives you insight into the mind of your audience and your market.
Yeah, yeah, yep, yep. Makes tons of sense. Makes tons of sense. So, thinking now about the research side, how you sort of started in Caddy, and then you
Right.
sort of expanded your horizons at the Logit Group, and so much has changed as well in the research industry over that time. As you think about the future of research, what do you see?
Well, I see, not to be a downer, but I see challenges. There's a
Yeah,
lot of new tools that are coming to the fore. Everybody talks about AI. Um, but I think really something that's coming up is privacy legislation, something that's becoming more and more of a focus. And the thing is, it's a patchwork of different types of legislation too. So we're dealing with different layers of whether or not you're talking about it globally with GDCC versus different uh, regulations in the states, or whether you're talking about the different state level legislation. It's really about assimilating that and then essentially um, the types of challenges that brings to us as we're starting to look at another challenge, which is online sample quality, which as we're looking at automated solutions for being able to monitor online sample quality and people's identities and how we're holding on to that data. I see a lot of just a lot of different challenges as far as what we're going to need to do to be able to wrap that all together. And then as you look to the different tools that are being brought to the table with AI and whatnot, challenge I see there is essentially being able to, like we are talking about with music, essentially take that technology, take that ability. There's a lot of different technology in music now, like in recording
yeah,
studios and whatnot. But being able to keep that human factor is something that it feels is going to be harder and harder to hold on to, but more and more important because when it gets right back to it, both in music and in research, we're dealing with humans, and being able to keep that human perspective is something that's really incumbent upon us as professionals to keep on the front burner.
yes, yes, absolutely. Those issues kind of seep into pretty much any all applications around us, the arts, the professional sphere, all that sort of thing. So now this is a podcast, right? And I don't know if you listen to podcasts. Okay, if you do, okay if you don't. But I'm curious to know, just big, broad media question. If you think about the media you turn to for insight, inspiration, or enjoyment, what does it look like?
Well, honestly, I don't spend a lot of time watching media. I have a lot that keeps me busy between work, kids, and keeping the music going.
Yeah.
At this point in time, I think I've got three bands that I play with, and I do stuff on the side. But when it comes, a lot of what I do is I find a lot of my time is spent on YouTube, either finding instructional videos for guitar playing. Somebody who's really interesting on the musical side on YouTube is a guy named Rick Beato.
Oh
He
yes,
does
big
a lot
fan.
of
Big
if
fan.
so you're familiar. I mean, he's got a great background in theory, but he's also got a great background in music production. And he's been around for 35 years, kind of in the background. I don't know if anybody would know who he is aside from folks who are seeing him on YouTube, but he brings such a diverse set of skills to the table and a really kind of unique perspective. And he's really as he's grown in his following, I think he's been able to bring more celebrities, more of those musical legends to the table to be able to have great conversations with them about what drives them and the challenges that they've faced and uh, how they've been able to apply their art as the industry has changed over time. Because making money in music, even for the best, has become more and more difficult, even though there's more and more access. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
something else, I have a lot of interest in early history. So I find myself recently there's a series called Krakenford, and essentially it's a linguist and a mythology historian who goes over the the sources of a lot of our mythologies and spiritual traditions,
Uh-huh.
and commingles that with linguistics and whatnot. And so I find that really uh, pretty compelling. You know, we're talking about some of the earliest stories that humankind has brought to the fore and then carried on with, and how they've changed in different places, but how there's a common thread. Something I really think kind of translates well back into music, because it's really back to basically music. There's a lot of different postulates of how music is, and different flavors of music. When it comes right back down to it, it's all telling that story that basically grabs your soul and really either soothes your soul or motivates you to keep moving on when you're dealing with challenges. At least for me, I found that's what music really is most for me. It's those two types of medicine.
Yeah. Well, that is the perfect segue to this question, which is the most important question. I mean, let's be honest. So, you mentioned, moving your soul. So this is one of those kinds of questions. So let's say, Chris, I don't know, you played lots of different kinds of music, but you're
Yep.
stranded on a desert island, and you have three records of your choosing to keep you company for the rest of your days. What are you picking?
Let's see. First, I got to make sure I have enough sunscreen if I'm on that desert island.
Oh, that'd be a disaster.
Hopefully, I've got that. But let's see. That's a tough question. I, I would start off with, I'm kind of a jazz head, so I think Miles Davis kind of blue
Ooh, nice, nice.
would
Yeah,
be something that I would want to have with me. It's got a great personnel lineup on there with Coltrane and Cannonball Adderley. Um, Also, Beethoven's Sixth. I think, I've got I love classical music,
yeah,
and even though Beethoven's Sixth is one of those ones that I think a lot of people know, and it's kind of cliche. I always first off, it's upbeat. I like it
yeah.
because it always uplifts me, and I've listened to a lot of different classical over the years, and I just find myself coming back to that one, particularly if I need to pick me up. So by the time I'm done listening to that, I'm usually feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
And I have a bit of a confession. I'm definitely a big Deadhead, so I'd
Yeah.
have to have some Grateful Dead. I hope I wouldn't have to have an album. If it's okay, I prefer to have a bootleg,
That's fair.
perhaps
That's fair.
something. I'm thinking 1972, like maybe Lyceum, London, the end of the Europe '72 tour. It's got some great songwriting driven songs, but it also has some of their more out there jams included too. So yeah, something from '72. Thinking London '72 probably.
Cool, cool, excellent. Good choices, good choices. And hey, maybe if we can get together while I'm in Denver, that'd be awesome. Chat,
Yeah, when
chat
are
a
you going to
little
be
bit.
out here? When are you going to be out here?
Gosh, it's mid-May. I'll let you know the
Okay.
dates.
And who are you
So
seeing?
we're seeing Gary Clark.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Gary Clark Jr.
Good choice.
Gary Clark Jr. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, super stoked about it. Haven't been there, but my wife's very excited too. So we're gonna have lots of fun, take lots of pictures, all that good stuff, and yeah,
Don't forget, bring a sweatshirt. It could easily be really hot, then really cold, then a little bit warmer again. So always make sure that for anybody who's listening, you're coming to Red Rocks, always be ready for a little bit of chill with a thunderstorm. You never know what you're going to get. It could go from
yeah,
90 degrees to pretty chilly pretty quickly. So you just want to be ready.
got it. Super cool. Well, I'll confirm the date for you. Hopefully, I can see you when we're in town. And let's keep in touch. Rock and roll.